The current administration's approach to the economy is bigger government, more regulation, and higher taxes. It has not worked, and it will not work. The way to create jobs is to reduce federal regulation, cut taxes, and balance the federal budget. Today, I'm proposing a 10-point plan to reduce federal regulation. My plan to reduce federal regulation is as follows. Number one, repeal every major rule and regulation adopted by the Obama administration and start over. The Obama administration has put forward tens of thousands of pages of proposed new rules and regulations and has adopted many of them. It is strangling our economy. We need to wipe the slate clean of all new major federal rules and regulations and start over. If there's a few that we really need, they can be reenacted. Number two, and very importantly, require congressional approval before any new major federal rule or regulation can go into effect. The Congress of the United States is supposed to be the lawmaking body of our country. For several decades now, they have largely delegated that to unelected bureaucrats who are not controlled, who are not responsible to the voters. And I think to require before any major new rule or regulation goes into effect that it be voted on by the Congress of the United States will do two things. Number one, it will greatly reduce the number of new rules and regulations. And number two, it will eliminate at least some of the more onerous and nonsensical regulations that the bureaucrats are writing. Number three, repeal Dodd-Frank. Senator Nelson voted for Dodd-Frank. That's the financial regulatory bill. Virtually every community banker I've talked to in Nebraska says this is imposing enormous burdens on them and may cause us to lose many of our local community banks. Will be forced to merge in with bigger banks in order to comply with these regulations. It needs to be repealed. We need to repeal Obamacare, a bill that Senator Nelson was the deciding vote on. Obamacare is a huge regulatory bill in addition to being extremely costly new federal entitlement. It's going to add additional regulation to insurance companies. It's going to add additional regulations to doctors. And in the end, it's going to lead to rationing of medical care down the road. It needs to be repealed. Number five, remove obstacles to domestic fossil fuel development. For the last several decades, radical environmentalists have dictated energy policy in the United States. We can no longer allow that to continue. Energy development in our country will lead to additional jobs and to lower energy prices for all of our consumers. Now to do that, we need to open a portion of ANWR to oil and gas production. We need to expand offshore leasing. We need to open more federal lands to oil and gas exploration. We need a fast-track permitting process. And we need to prohibit private lawsuits challenging energy development projects once all government approvals have been obtained. And once again, Senator Nelson has opposed opening ANWR, and he opposed a bill co-sponsored by Senator Mike Johans that would have speeded up oil development in the Gulf of Mexico earlier this year. Number six, enact legislation that will permanently prohibit the EPA from regulating farm dust. This is one of the craziest proposed regulations I think I have ever heard. What is a farm? It is dirt. How do you regulate dust on a farm that is dirt? It's crazy. It's almost unbelievable. And I want to commend Senator Johans for his efforts to at least put the brakes on this temporarily. This would be very damaging to the Nebraska economy, and we're not going to be safe until we have a law that specifically says the EPA cannot issue regulations on farm dust. Number seven, enact legislation requiring a cost-benefit analysis of power plant, industrial plant, and automotive emissions regulation. I think that speaks for itself. Number eight, prohibit the National Labor Relations Board from taking any action to hinder or block construction of new manufacturing facilities anywhere in the United States, and stop the NLRB from ordering employers to close, relocate, or transfer jobs and facilities. Exhibit A here is the Boeing company. They want to build a brand new aircraft manufacturing facility in the state of South Carolina. Now, their main facilities are in the state of Washington, which is a unionized state. The state of South Carolina, like Nebraska, is a right-to-work state. Well, the National Labor Relations Board doesn't think it's a good idea to build a new plant in a right-to-work state, so they're trying to block Boeing from creating jobs and opening a new facility in the state of South Carolina. That is not and should not be the business of the National Labor Relations Board. Employers ought to be able to make decisions as to where the best place for their plant is, whether it's a right-to-work state or otherwise. 9, prohibit the National Labor Relations Board from adopting rules for unionization elections, reserving that power solely to the Congress. And this goes to card check, which would deny the secret ballot to workers in a plant, as well as the new proposal to basically provide very speeded up elections so an employer cannot have his or her case heard. And 10, audit the Federal Reserve Board. In order to revive our economy and substantially reduce unemployment, the adoption of this plan is urgently needed. My goal as Nebraska's next United States Senator is to enact this regulatory relief plan by July 4th, 2013. President Obama and Senator Nelson believe in big government and heavy-handed federal regulation. That approach is literally strangling our economy. We need a new direction. We need to get government out of the way so that free enterprise can create jobs and rebuild our economy. That's what this plan to reduce federal regulation is all about. Now, we've laid out a plan, and it talks about policy. But what often gets lost in these policy discussions is that there are real-world consequences. There are people losing their businesses. There are people losing their jobs because of this federal overregulation. And what I want to do today is to highlight one of those areas of regulation relating to home building. For the media's benefit, because I think everybody else knows, if we were on a home construction site right now, and that ladder was leaning against a wall just like that, you could be subject to a $5,000 fine by OSHA. Nobody on the ladder, nobody using the ladder, just leaning up against the wall. That's just one example of the type of overregulation. But to give you a bigger picture of what Omaha home builders, and really home builders all over the country, are facing in terms of vastly over-regulation, I want to call Larry Niffler up, owner of Royal Homes, to explain more fully what the regulatory burdens being faced by home builders today. Larry,
okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay, thank you, Don. I really appreciate your calling us and having us, giving us the time to do this. This means a lot. We've been working on this for over probably a year, and we've been waiting for an opportunity like this. So, and I also want to thank all the home builders and all the contractors and suppliers for coming today and supporting us. I think this is, in my 40 years of being around home building, this is the most challenging time that I think we've ever gone through. From declining prices into the EPA stipulations, we have low appraisals hurting us, bank buybacks, and now we have OSHA that are forcing us to take and just cut into our profits and cut into the home building. And also the home building with the greatest, probably, as I think Buffett called it, the greatest home depression ever. Okay, we have about 60% unemployment already. And also, we couldn't have bought worse press if we wanted to. 4 years ago, if we wanted to go out and say, why don't you just give us the worst press for home building that you possibly could, you would say, okay, next month it's going to go down in price, next month the interest rate's going to go down. So that'd make everybody run out today and go buy a house. So what they're doing is sitting on the sidelines. So already having that in place, and usually in a recession, the cars and homes is what brings us out of the recession. Those two things can put more people to work faster than anything else. So, and also I think Omaha market is one of the best in the nation right now, and I think part of the reason we have been taken and not targeted for this OSHA is because we have a fairly viable market here in Omaha. For a major market, I think we have one of the best products in the nation. Okay, I think I just more or less for us, to me, it started with Obama's executive order to OSHA to take and revive rules that have been dormant for years, and to come out and send people out to take and do the dormant rules plus make new rules and enforce them. And they told us in this room, there was an inspector in here that they were told from Washington to enforce these rules at any cost it takes to take and make these rules doable. And they gave us no instruction. They said they sent out emails, they sent out notifications. A lot of our subs give me handwritten bills. They do not have computers. They do not know how to use the computers. They're out in the job working, and OSHA has not connected with these people. They have not trained these people. They have not helped us in any way and we've asked for this help. Even on the OSHA website, if you go to the OSHA website, they have compliance pictures and so on. Even the OSHA website is so confusing that their compliance pictures are not compliant. You could go and pick out almost every picture where there is not boards across the wall, there's a ladder that's one rung too short. They can't even get it right. And they're coming out and finding us, and they can't even do it. Examples for the most obvious is like the ladder over here, tying off when you're doing rafters. The highest job, 20 feet off the ground, and you're supposed to be up there putting rafters to tie off to what? There's nothing out there that you can really go to. And then the other thing is, I think we can show right here is a demonstration. You guys have maybe probably seen it, but one of the things we tried to do with the OSHA office here was, on the basics, is just standing and say this is a foundation right here. And I'm standing, Greg's standing on the ground right here, and he's going to put up floor joists right here. He has to be tied off, standing on the ground on this floor joist, hooked up like this. There we go. And I have to drive a stake in the ground, or they actually told us to tie it to a bumper to take, and I'm not kidding you, okay, tie it to a bumper to take and put a floor joist right there. Or the alternative was, which they wanted us to do, was to take and go down and say this is the 9-foot deep foundation here, the floor joists are here, and Greg's going to stick his head up here and toenail this floor joist with a 16-penny nail gun next to his face. So, and when they're putting the floor joists on, they're shooting them on almost this fast. So he would have to be moving that stake out there, or somebody taking watching him doing the floor joist with this tied off, which is probably about 10 times the power of a seat belt, in the wind, holding their harness in their narrow pouch. Now, is that safer than having somebody watch? We even asked them if they turn the floor joist down like they do and they laid them out, is that safe? They said, no, it's not, if they're laying there like that, which would almost be impossible to go through. We asked them for a variance on that. They said, no, we cannot do it at the local office. It has to be kicked up upstairs, meaning that the national office would have to do that. So we have tried. I think the statistics bear out that there has been really no need to hit Omaha or to have this OSHA come down on us like we need to. I think there was one death in 2007, and that was a roofer fell off. And right now, we've covered that everybody's on a roof needs to be tied off. We have done that just either with lanyards, there are different mechanisms, the harnesses, everybody's tied off on the roof. But other than that, there's been no deaths. And they've come down on us to take, their thinking is, since there's no deaths, okay, like driving a car, the longer you go with a car without a wreck, the lower your insurance goes. In OSHA's thinking, the longer you go without an accident, the more prone you are to have one. Okay? It's the opposite. They told us that. That's their thinking. Also, did you know that the federal, state, and city employees are totally exempt from OSHA? When Greg got fined, and he took it to the State Department of Labor court, we were talking, and I went around a corner, and here was a city worker, probably 15 feet high, on a retaining wall on this big, weed eating. And once you get this OSHA in your mind, you can't get it out because everything you see is related to 6 feet off the ground and you got to be tied off. I couldn't believe it. I wish I would have took a picture. But they are totally exempt. So they hold us to a higher standard than they do even their own people. Okay, also, the union iron workers can be 35 feet off the ground and not physically tied off. Home builders are 6 feet off the ground, Don's height. 6 feet off the ground, and you have to have this equipment tied off. There's some way to be legal. Anyway, it just doesn't, even if it went to 12 feet, which we asked for, because then it would eliminate this 9 foot on the foundation. It would eliminate the walls. Most of our walls in our houses are 8, 9 foot, 10 foot. We could live with 12 foot, would be much easier. But we've tried that, we haven't done that. Economic impact, if we did everything we needed to do with OSHA, the housing would be about 30% more, which to me is a hidden tax. That's a tax that everybody's going to pay every time they buy a house that's non-productive. And also it goes into, and I don't think people realize all the time, home maintenance. Anytime, if you've noticed your homeowners insurance has gone up, one of the reasons, anytime a roofer, a cider, windows, Christmas lights, you got to be tied off. And if you got to be tied off on a ring that's on your house up there, and if that ring fails on the top of the tie-off, you're liable. So this is a lot bigger, that people don't really realize that it affects them that way. Okay, there's been many crews, there's been 4 or 5 crews that I know of that have gotten out of the business because they can't afford the fines, they can't afford the programs. This is my set of regulations for Royal Homes, okay? I spent $500. If I really got into it, it'd be a $2,000 a year program for all the stuff they want to send me. And this, they will not stand by it. Who sold me this? It's just the general rules. It's not for Omaha because it's not specific. But there's all the other people that want to sell this. They want to sell the harnesses. They want to sell these programs, but they still won't even stand behind them. And also, they won't take and get them specific, and they don't know how to be specific because OSHA won't tell them specific. OSHA knows when they see it. They were here telling us, what do we do when it's wrong? When we come out, we'll know that it's wrong. And they told us when standing here again, every time we come out, we're going to fine you. We will find something. So just think, every time that an OSHA guy walks through that door and somebody's not doing something right in their room, somebody's going to get fined probably $5,000 or more. And it was just totally intolerable for me, for my guys, and last spring, there was almost panic of afraid to go to work in Nebraska on a house, in the rain, in the snow, the greatest bunch of guys, closest thing to farming that I've ever done, and they're afraid to go to work because they're going to get fined out of existence. It's beyond my comprehension. So, to fight this, we formed an OSHA fund, which we've had a lot of donations to. We retained a lawyer who's an OSHA lawyer. We've written our own compliances with the lawyer so we can take them to court if we need to take them to court. There's been a group of OSHA men that went to Washington, and with the help of Johans, went to Washington and faced the head of OSHA. And now I think we have some attention focused on Omaha that we can start writing our own OSHA compliances, except I think they set up appointments with them and they're always put off. They're always put off. We asked for how many times OSHA has hit just the Omaha area compared to the rest of the country. They couldn't tell us that. We were actually sitting in, which blew my mind, Johans' office, and Greg asked, can you get this for us? Can we see how many times OSHA has just hit the Omaha area compared to other place else? And Greg says, I kind of found that out. And they said, you really did? How'd you do that? I couldn't believe one of the top 200 elected officials in the world could not figure out how many times OSHA has hit Omaha or Nebraska or any place else. And they've been working on it for 3 months trying to find out, and they can't find it. Unbelievable. They don't want to give this information out. Unbelievable. So anyway, we want to take And we also met with the National Home Builders Association, and I think we're working with them right now. And also there's a lot, this is like car insurance. When you're going down the road, you have to have car insurance, you have to have liability. The more wrecks you get into, the higher your car insurance goes. We have the same thing. We have workman's comp, we have liability insurance, all that has to be kept up to date all the time. There's already rules and regulations. Plus, we are a family of builders. I've been working with some of these guys for 30 years. They are like my family. If you think I want them to be unsafe, that's the last thing I want to do. So anyway, getting down to, I guess it just goes against just the Nebraska work ethic. You know, all we want to do is go out and do our jobs safely, with common sense, and be productive. That's all we want to do. And I appreciate you so much to take and, come here and listen to us and help us out. Okay?
Thank you. I might just, I have a copy of a letter that David Navity of the Omaha Lion sent to Lee Terry. He provided it to me some time back. And in the letter, he sets out some examples of fines that have been levied here in the Omaha area. One was a $7,000 fine for having a ladder stand in there like that. Another one was a $21,000 fine for having a safety rail that was 2 inches from where the inspector said that it should be. Another was a roofer who borrowed a forklift from another contractor, was fined $44,000 because he was not officially trained on the forklift. And there are many other examples of extraordinary fines. I think you can see the frustration of a regulatory bureaucracy that won't tell you exactly what the rules are, levy inordinate fines, impose additional new rules that make no real sense. It's easy to see if you look at these examples why our economy is struggling. This isn't just happening in the home building industry. It's happening all across the country in all kinds of industries, and it's making it harder to run a business. It's making it harder to grow your business, which means it's harder to add employees. And so our economy is stagnating into the heavy weight of all these new Obama regulations, and we need to just go strike them from the books and start over.